I would say I got a joke to tell, but I don't.
There you go.
Cool. Thank you so much for coming along today. One thing since my career turned to marketing was that the number of times that I heard that it was just this kind of fluffy thing. And I think if I hear that marketing is just fluff one more time, I'm actually going to go nuts. It is so difficult. The amount of data available right now, the number of channels that you can distribute content on, and the number of different new brands and new opportunities available make it extremely difficult to get your message heard. So I'm going to talk to you today about just one aspect of marketing, and that is how do you reach local people, people in the streets within a particular town or a set location. So why should you listen to me? So my name is Ollie Hills. As Yanis said, I'm the CEO of Updates Media. We have a network of independent community pages, but I will come on to that very shortly. My background is actually in finance. So I went to uni, and I thought I want to be an investment banker. I was like, that's all I want to do. I want to have a boat and just live the life. So I worked at UBS. I then got a job at Fidelity, and I thought, that's it. I'm 22, living the dream. I absolutely hated it. So my brother came to me with an opportunity, and he said, Ollie, I've got an idea for an app. I was like, sound. I have no idea what I'm doing, but that sounds ace. So I left Fidelity, and we launched an app called BibShot. BibShot was a platform where you could connect event photography between spectators and participants at mass participation events. Like every first startup, I didn't know what I was doing, and it failed so fundamentally, it was almost hilarious. But I wasn't deterred, so I came back, funnily enough, exactly on this stage about 3 years ago today, and I pitched my new business, which was called Zento. Zento still runs today. It is a business with a mission to remove single-use plastic at mass participation events. If you go to London Marathon, they hand out, well, they are changing now, but they used to hand out about 500,000 plastic water bottles. That's just one event on one weekend. So I was here, I was pitching for investment, and I thought, this is going well. And the investor in Updates Media just happened to be sat in the audience. So I had a chat with him, and he said, you don't want to be doing that. You want to come and run Birmingham Updates. I was like, okay, that sounds fun, let's give it a go. So that was my first venture into the world of publishing and marketing and advertising. And at that point, I didn't actually know what a press release was. Bear in mind, I owned one of the biggest publications in Birmingham. I had no idea what I was supposed to do with this thing. So it kind of gave me the opportunity to just question everything, which I think is a great trait and something that we should all continue to do every day. And also, I used to go to meetings where they talked about CPM and CPA and programmatic, and I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. So that was probably me in most meetings for the first year of me running Updates. So now I just try and talk about reality and just make things super simple. So if I do start blabbering on in jargon, you have permission to kick me off the stage. And when I'm not running around trying to run two businesses, I'm obsessed by Lego. So any Lego fans in the audience, big up. So if I was to say to you now as marketeers and branding and customer experience, how would you reach local people? You'd probably say to me, we're going to do it like this. We're going to stick up a billboard in particular locations near to our shop or where we want to reach people, and we see them everywhere. They flash in your face and are slightly annoying, and you generally walk past them on your phone. This picture here is actually TV, but as we know, well, I can't remember the last time I actually watched an advert. I'd always fast forward or get out my phone and fanny around on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So then you've got radio, another option to reach local people. Unfortunately, radio is in decline, and it's moving back towards more of a national proposition with local advertising. Plus, you've got Spotify, you've got audiobooks, you've got podcasts, you've got loads of different ways of getting audio on demand. So it's very difficult to get your message out. I wouldn't be stood up here if the local newspaper was doing well, and I'll come on to that in just a moment. Or like farm foods, you can send me a flyer through the post every single day of the week. It must work for them, but it's a very hard way to track what they're doing. But now you're going to say to me, it's like, Ollie, you're living in like 2000 or something. We always know about digital, and you can target people based on their location. and you can put adverts onto the website that they're on and retarget to them. And if they've landed on a website, your ad now pops up. Or we can go on Facebook and target an advert based on where someone's been. Brilliant, problem solved. Unfortunately not. So a recent survey by Location Sciences found out that 65% of adverts that were based on targeting a location was misspent. And this is because IP addresses were seen to be fake, and it was also seen that GPS location and geo-targeting is not as accurate as we first thought. Problem. Plus, as well, when you do have programmatic advertising, i.e. adverts that pop up on your website, they're just annoying. I just want to read some content, and now I've got your brand popping up in my face and disrupting me from what I want to be doing. So, okay, it works. I'm not saying none of this doesn't work. It's just a challenge. The trusty local newspaper. I'd love to have been in the boardroom when the newspapers decided what their digital strategy was going to be. Because all I can picture is they've got their newspaper open, and they thought, I've got loads of words here written down, and I've got some adverts next to it. If we just put that on a screen, problem solved, right? And that's exactly what they did. So local newspapers are having a torrid time in the transition from print to digital. I think it's 225 have closed down since 2005. And now, if you aren't aware, the BBC and Facebook is actually funding local journalism in the UK, which is pretty baffling and quite scary. So when you do go onto your local newspaper, you are abused by all these adverts that pop up, and you just don't enjoy the user experience. And it means that people are turning off from wanting to go on them anyway. But also, the content that they produce is more focused when you're on social media of driving you to a website rather than delivering interesting content that you want to enjoy. So I remember, I think it was last year, one of my favorite headlines ever. It's like, man offers sex in return for free rent. And I thought, Christ almighty, is that in the Drury Quarter where I live? Or maybe it's in Moseley where my friend lives. And I went on to the local newspaper in Birmingham, harassed through the adverts, finally got to the bottom. The whole thing was in Liverpool. And that's it. That is exactly what the local newspaper is today. They're more interested in getting clicks to their website rather than getting information to you. So then we go on Facebook and think, well, we can grow our own audiences here. And that's fine, you can. But I want to be called Bab when I'm in Birmingham, and when I was at Newcastle at uni, I want to be called Pet. Well, actually, I don't want to be called Ollie, but it just is what it is, right? So we can all but build a social channel based on the location that we are, but it's hard to generate content on a daily basis that really speaks to that person in that particular location. And what's more, as Mr. Zuckerberg does, he came out at F8 this year and he said, the world is changing because I'm decided it's changing. And he said, we're going to move away from this concept of Facebook and social media being this town square where you basically push content out into the public, get people to engage, hopefully, and then we'll move on. Obviously, with conspiracies like Cambridge Analytica, the world has moved towards private and having conversations within a safe, private domain, whether that's on Messenger, on WhatsApp, but more importantly, now on groups and within local, tight-knit communities. Where a digital living room comes in is that those conversations that you can have in a living room are a lot more in depth, they're a lot more intense. But therefore, the content you have to create is therefore a lot more in depth, a lot more intense, and really speak to those niche audiences that you want to target. That's expensive to do, and it takes a lot of effort to do that. So all I've said is that it's massive doom and gloom. But we have hope, which is exciting. So we want to introduce the community heroes. So Birmingham Update's there in top left, my top right. That's the page that we own and operate. It started during the riots in August 2011, and it has now grown to 610,000 followers across Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And we have one mission in life, and that is to inform the audience about what's going on locally and that's relevant to them. We also have 0 adverts on our website, so we drive content out to them rather than trying to drive clicks. Now, if someone clicks on the website, it's quite a pleasant experience where you don't get bombarded with adverts. Similarly, during the riots, the team up in Manchester created Isle of Manchester. It's grown to a similar audience number now. The Londonist is about 2 million followers. And then you get actually, that's brilliant, we've covered the major cities, right? But because of the lack of content that's being distributed on a local level, and people want to know what's going on within their local community, we're naturally nosy, right? If you see a for sale sign go up, you go and have a look how much the price of your house could be. And that's because we all have the interest of our local community at heart. So we have Chase News. So if you live in Cannock, you'll most likely follow Chase News. This was set up by one lady who's now got an incredibly engaged audience and just focuses on delivering that interesting content. Hereford, where I was born, Your Herefordshire is run by 3 people who run it on a part-time basis. It's now bigger in terms of audience size and engagement than the Hereford Times. And B14 News, so Kyle recently joined our team. If you live in the Kings Heath area, you most likely follow B14 News. He's grown to 10,000 followers within that small community. And the interesting thing here is, as I live in the Jury Quarter in Birmingham, I only follow Birmingham Updates because it's the only one that's of interest to me. So these are all pages, but this is what we're seeing in terms of groups as well. So the Harborne Community Group in Birmingham now has 13,000 members of it. And there aren't that many more people than 13,000 in Harborne. So what they've managed to do, these community heroes, as we call them, is harness the interest, relevance, and kind of loyalty of that local audience that they want to speak to on a day-to-day basis. And the good thing for brands in the audience is that you can find these pretty easily. You can locate pages, you can locate groups, and I've just seen Lee from On the Tools rock up, so he will tell you how to build these communities. The good thing is that these are already built, and they have the audience that you want to reach in particular locations. So if you have got a particular niche or audience that you want to reach, it's worth dipping into Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, the other social channels to find the groups of people who have an interest in the thing that you can add value on. And that's really, really important. Or, I'm pleased to say that as of literally today, we are launching, I've actually lost a slide. There we go. So we are launching Updates Media. So we have actually built together a network of independent local community groups and pages around the UK. So far we have 75 groups and pages with locations that cover basically everywhere from Penzance to John O'Groats. And we have built those up into a network to enable brands to reach local people at scale. But we do it through content that we create, and most importantly, localize to that relevant audience. So we know it works from a Birmingham Updates perspective because we've worked with some pretty cool brands. These brands want to tap into the local Birmingham community because they have something interesting to talk about or something interesting that's going on that they want people to know about. But we were also fortunate, before we launched Updates Media today, to work on a trial campaign. That trial campaign was with the Commonwealth Games, and it was part of their brand activation for the 2022 logo. And the Commonwealth Games did something epic, which was put in place these tape art installations in different parts around the West Midlands where the games were going to be taking place. So the good thing about that is that they generally got organic reach through social anyway, because if you stumbled across one of these tape arts, you're naturally going to take a picture and upload it onto your social and find out what's going on. But we activated those around the communities that they were actually placed. So in the top left, at Cannock Leisure Centre, we sent a team to take some imagery and video of that particular location, and we distributed it through Chase News. Same in Touchwood, same in Stourbridge and Dudley, Spalding City Centre, Sutton Coldfield, Coventry, and about 3 other locations. Now, the interesting thing is that the engagement that it got on those pages was actually really important, because people in Cannock don't don't care about what's going on in Solihull. They just care about what's going on within their local community. So by making the content super relevant for that community, you get to understand, or you get to kind of reach deep into the conversation. And it's authentic, because these community heroes have built the trust of their audience, and they already have the engagement there. So just in this campaign, we delivered just shy of 1 million impressions. It was completely localized, and it really had that meaningful conversation behind it. And what's more, as we all go on social media and realize how toxic it can be, you actually get to understand what your customers are saying. So all the panel that we just had was saying was, how do you speak to your customers? And how do you find out what your customers actually want and actually think of your brand? We were able to do that, and fortunately, apart from a couple of comments about there should be a line down to London for the cycling, everyone was very supportive over the brand. So I guess, so what? So when you want to reach local people, it's interesting to get those that have already built those communities and have the trust of their audience. And you can do that by tapping into the community groups and pages that already exist today. The good thing is that you can actually join conversations. So you can speak to people with how it's actually impacting them. So if you have a different brand message for Manchester to Leeds, or find out what your customers think in those particular areas, you can actually localize the conversation. And therefore, understanding what the audience and consumers are saying within that particular location, you can make the messaging completely relevant and localize it with the Bab and Pet example as I gave earlier. And it's trackable. So you can actually see what people are saying, how many people you've reached, and really get that authentic conversation going. That is me.
Thanks, Ollie. It's great to see you getting down to that local level and creating those kind of meaningful conversations. How do you tap into the sentiment of kind of local communities and take those issues back to brands so those brands can kind of, tackle them, kind of talk about them, and kind of engage in conversations around them?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So the most important thing, I think, as a brand is not to hide from feedback. Like, you look outside now and I can see an advert for Tide. You've got no idea what people are actually saying and what people actually think. Okay, it's got some awareness, that's brilliant, but you don't understand what someone says as they walk past. You can't hide from that on social media. I think a lot of brands do, but I really don't think you should. Because as we heard, it's all about speaking and listening to your customer. If you can bring your customer to every meeting, why would you not want to do that? But I think what's really interesting as well is how you get different types of people in each different location. So if you have a national advertising campaign, understanding what the feedback is in Poole compared to what it is in Newcastle means that you can super target and make your message really relevant to the feedback that you're getting. And that's just something that you can't do. So we take great pride in looking at the feedback. Yes, we censor comments, like especially when we work with a couple of brands that aren't always most loved. But we always take that feedback and make sure the next piece of content answers those questions. And I guess the other thing with social now, it's all about that two-way conversation. So we do a lot of research. We do a lot of polls. We do a lot of surveys to really understand what people in that local community thinks of the brand, and therefore enables you to create content off the back of that as well.
Great. So again, it's kind of creating those meaningful conversations at kind of grassroots level.
Yeah.
Has anyone else got a question for Ollie? Run there.
Hi. It was interesting when you was talking about people moving away from the public elements of social media platforms and choosing Messenger and WhatsApp to have their own groups and private conversations. What do you think gives brands the rights to enter those conversations? They've obviously taken them away from the platform because they want to keep it private. If brands infiltrate those areas, then there's a massive risk that people will just turn off the platform altogether.
Totally. Yeah, no, it's an absolute fantastic point. And we actually tried it. So I went on as myself and posted some content about a brand that wasn't solicited. I wasn't asked to do it. And I just went on and I started talking about it. And I pretended that I was somewhat involved in that brand. Probably a bit naughty, but you've got to try these things. And it was amazing the comments that came up to say, actually, no, you shouldn't be here, and I didn't add any value, and whatever it may be. Interestingly, though, when the admin posts it, it's almost accepted, or it's more accepted, because when you're in a group, the moderation of that group is really, really intense. Looking at comments, making sure the community is doing what they're doing, following the rules, and people don't mind them being rewarded for that work. So as long as the brand is relevant to that group, and that's the key thing. As long as it's relevant, like if I've got a group with dog lovers and I put in some cat food discount, it's a waste of time, right? But if I can add value with my product to that particular group, no one's going to mind. Actually, they'll thank you for it as long as you can add value. So you've really got to think about the content and why that content is answering questions they may have, or adding value that they didn't know they needed, but it's still done in the right way. So going through the actual page admin is a great way of getting their trust and their recommendation, a bit like an influencer, but we call them community heroes. And I guess the other thing is, like, I don't think sales exists anymore on social. So it's about, what does your content actually do for them? If a sale comes off the back of it, brilliant. I think social is all about building your brand, building advocacy within that particular niche that you want to focus. So hopefully that answers your question.
I think that contextual relevance is so important to brands in this day and age. So I think that's some great advice, and yeah, a lot of kind of companies here can kind of benefit from that. So yeah, thank you, Ollie. Round of applause for Ollie, everyone.